Hi everyone, today I'll be talking about bow tiller. What is bow tiller? It is the distance between the limb here to the string 90 degrees and also on the bottom side. Then you subtract, taking the top side distance, subtracting the bottom side distance. In most cases, you should get a positive number because this length here should be greater than the bottom. It's also possible to get even tiller where both of them are of equal distance, and negative tiller if the bottom is actually greater distance than the top. Usually, on most traditional Asiatic bows, you should have a positive tiller. And let me show you why. So when we hold the bow, we usually hold in the center. And we put our arrows above our hand, like this. So if the bow is symmetric, top bottom, the distance here is actually shorter than the distance to the bottom. In fact, when I hold this one, when I hold the string, notice that my thumb is not even to the center. My thumb and this arrow is closer to the top than the bottom. So as a result, when I draw this back, the top has to bend more and the bottom bends less. In order for both this limb to reach a synchronized and in harmony, you would want to stiffen up the bottom limb and weaken the top limb by a little bit relative to each other, so that the top limb, when it bends more, it is the same poundage as the stiffer limb bending slightly less. And because of this stiffness difference between the top and bottom, where the bottom is just a little bit stiffer than the top, as a result, the bottom limb would want to straighten out and it drags the top. As a result, your bow will kind of have this shape. I'm gonna exaggerate like this. Okay, the top is gonna have a greater distance. It's gonna look somewhat like this. And if you're gonna put it on a flat surface, it's gonna be something like that. I'm exaggerating. It is not that much. I just want to give you an idea that it's gonna slope like that. Okay. Just now I said most cases you get positive tiller. However, when you buy your bow, there are some notorious example. If you were to buy mass-produced bows, such as from Ali Bow, AF Bow, it's not that the bows are bad. They are affordable bows, and they are very prettily made. They look good, they look fine, they can shoot fine. But when you get them, you may be surprised that sometimes it is even tiller and sometimes it is negative tiller. And the reason is because in this mass-produced bow, they do not spend the time to tiller the bow. So you actually get random tiller, sometimes positive, sometimes even, and sometimes negative. Tillering is a very time intensive, labor intensive, and very time intensive what they call this work labor. It takes a lot of time to constantly having to pull this back, check how they balance, shave them, and check again multiple times until you get the bow in harmony. So usually mass-produced bows, they just skip this. If you are on a budget and you are looking for a bow that is properly tillered, I normally would recommend the Mariner Basic version, because despite being basic, so-called basic, it is properly tillered. All of them, every unit. But when I get the AF bows, I do sell them, so I'm not being biased. When I get them and I string them all up, the tiller is all over. It's just completely random. It is completely random. And the tiller would actually cause vibration and hand shock, because when they are not, the limbs are not in harmony, they produce more hand shock, more vibration. So if you want a good shooting quality, you may want to consider bows that have proper tiller. Now next I'm going to talk about why in some cases you actually want to have even tiller or even negative tiller. For even tiller, it's usually used by 3 finger under. Okay, for 3 finger under, like this. Okay, like this. It doesn't happen for Mediterranean draw like that, because in Mediterranean draw, you see, it is very similar to thumb draw, where we are biased to the top side. This is the center. We are biased to the top side, so the physics is the same. But with 3 finger under, it is actually a lot closer to the middle. You see, this is the middle. When you have 3 finger under, it's actually closer to the middle. So when your grip and your hook here are both in the center of the bow, the limbs actually bend evenly. As a result, you may want to use either an even tiller or just slightly very small positive tiller. Okay. On the other hand, who uses negative tiller? It's like kind of weird, right? So it's the string walkers, people who use string walking technique. What is that? You can actually Google that, but I'm just going to give you a very quick example. This is what they would do. They will have the arrow high up and they will hold way down, and they shoot like this. They'll shoot like that. And the reason why they do so is that to shoot at different distances, they will change this distance. Sometimes they're going to hold higher like this, sometimes a lot lower. And when they do so, they actually cause significant imbalance in the limb. This particular technique is quite frowned upon by the community, so the archery community. So some people hate it like hell, and some people just love it. I'm not going to comment on that one. Personally, I don't recommend it. It is not good for the bow, because when we draw the bow back, okay, when we draw it back, where we push to where we pull or draw, this is the maximum power stroke. When you put your arrow away from our finger, due to the string being slanted at full draw, the distance of this arrow here, actually it goes shorter, right? Let me show you. If it is, let's say here, it is very close to the maximum power stroke. But if the arrow is far out like this, it is shorter power stroke. You see, there's a different distance between the thumb here to the arrow. So as this distance here increase, the power stroke difference between the arrow and what we actually draw is higher. So that leads to inefficiency. We do not want and we do not like inefficient technique. Okay, so why would they need negative tiller? When they have the arrow significantly like this, pointing down, and they're holding so far from the arrow, what happens now is that there is a significant imbalance in the limb, where it is very short here and it's very long here. So when you shoot the bow, just now I mentioned about the power stroke, it is significantly inefficient. So when you let go of the string, the lower limb is pulling less mass and the top limb is pulling more mass. So as a result, the bottom limb, when it pulls forward, there's this extra string loop. It's just as if, you know, when it goes like that, right? So the arrow is at the front. When you let go, there's this portion here, it just want to recover, and there's no mass there except for the string's mass. So when this recover very quickly, it actually kind of like partially dry firing your lower limb. It's not good for the bow. So how do you reduce that? Well, they reduce the poundage of the lower limb so that it will kind of keep in pace with the top limb. And when you weaken the lower limb, now the bow kind of get dragged the other way like this. And that's why they use a negative tiller. It is up to you want to use it or not, but it is not a good technique for the bow. It kind of harms the bow. I don't really recommend that technique.